Hello and welcome to the video where we count down the smallest incorporated towns in a particular state. And this time we're in Arizona. And this one's gonna be very, very different. So Arizona does not have very many incorporated towns. There's only 91 incorporated towns in the entire state. Most of the small communities are not incorporated. A lot of the other states I've been to have tiny, tiny towns that have, incorporation, a mayor or a town council or something like that. But Arizona's a little bit different, and these towns are bigger than the smaller towns in the other states. And once you get beyond about 5 or 6, they're over 1,000. So I thought 5 would be a good number, and we'll count down from 5 to 1. Only, like I said, those incorporated towns. So let's go ahead and get started. We are starting our trip here in Duncan, Arizona. We're only 4 miles from New Mexico, so very eastern part of Arizona. And Duncan is a fascinating place to explore. It's kind of divided, the town's kind of divided into two by the river, the Gila River there. And most of the downtown is to the south. And then to the north, there's some other communities like the fairgrounds, and there's a elementary school. But so most of the stuff that you would see if you're kind of exploring is in the south of the river part. A lot of great old buildings downtown. This land was added to the United States as part of the Mexican Cession and the Gadsden Purchase. And Duncan had been destroyed twice by flood and once by fire. So it's a surviving community, even though it's had some tough times. Mostly ranching and mining families around this area, and there's a lot of Native American artifacts, kind of famous for a lot of findings of those kinds of things. So pretty historical place. The Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor was from a ranch near Duncan here. But yeah, it's a really cool town. I actually stayed in a hotel called the Simpson Hotel, and it was a historic hotel and great people that own it. I'm doing a video about hotels out here in a different video, but yeah, it was a great place to stay if you want to come and check out Duncan. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned how there's 91 incorporated towns. Well, Tusayan, Arizona is actually the most recent and 91st incorporated town here in Arizona. And it's unusual that it's on this list because it's not a really, it's not a typical town that you would think of on this list. We're south of the Grand Canyon. And so this town basically serves the tourists of the Grand Canyon. And it did have a, community did have a start way back in the early, 1900s when the Grand Canyon was officially organized around 1920. There was a guy who worked here in the forest and created a little community here, farm, and had the idea to serve, maybe put some hotels or something like that as people would pass through the Grand Canyon. Then in 1928, they built a road that would come up from Williams, Arizona, up to the Grand Canyon. And so when that happened, a community started to blossom here. Still was not an incorporated town all the way until, about 20 years ago. The community started to, I guess you would say, gain importance as more tourists came to the Grand Canyon. In the 1950s, they improved the road and more like it is now. And so it was, an easier drive for people, and this town started to grow even more. They tried to incorporate the town several different times, and first in the 1990s, then in the 2000s, and it kept failing. And then in 2010, it finally got the votes necessary for incorporation. And it only had, around 500 people or so. Now it's a little over 600 people. No drone flying around here because there's an airport and a big helicopter area. They do obviously helicopter tours for the Grand Canyon, and this is where they do them from. And so I was trying to show you some maybe Google Earth images of what the town is laid out. It's just pretty much a straight line on either side of the road is most of the town. I did found a town hall back in the kind of over by the airport. And there's a couple of remnants of old hotel signs. But other than that, it's not what most people think of when they think of the small towns, 600 people or more. But certainly serves its purpose, and a lot of people that go to the Grand Canyon go through Tusayan. Hayden, Arizona is one of the craziest towns on this list, probably the craziest to visit. It is full of so many abandoned buildings. It's hard to explain. I'll just have to show you as I'm walking around here. But give you a little history of how the town got started. It's a mining town, not easy to get to, but a mining town that started in 1909 and rose and had a pretty solid population, as these booming mining towns do. But to explain why the town is now on this list and is probably on its way to become a ghost town is because of a couple reasons. The mining has caused some contamination, and I've been to some other places like this, like Pitcher, Oklahoma, but this town is still in the process of dealing through those things. They aren't a Superfund site, which is what the government designates a place that is, just incredibly contaminated. But it is probably on its way to becoming a ghost town. And there's been lawsuits. There's been people here have been given some money, but not enough to move away probably. On the main street here, there are these old buildings. There's the police station. There's an old school. But if you drive around town, I haven't been to a place like this since I was in Cairo, Illinois, and that had like a little over 1,000 people left, and this has the same kind of feeling. But truly remarkable place to walk around and explore, and it's definitely going to get smaller, and who knows how much smaller it'll be before it's no longer a town. I stopped by the library and spoke to the librarian, and it was a very interesting conversation. She doesn't live here, but every time, I was asking questions, kind of being, friendly, asking about the area, and you could tell the resignation in her voice when, I'm talking about the buildings and asking about things like that, about, it's certainly downtrodden to say the least. But, that said there are some things. There's like a senior citizen center and the library here. And, there are, it's kind of the more active places in the town. Right next to the library is a public pool. I don't know if it's open. Doesn't look like it's open, but with the mining, factory right behind it, kind of a fitting picture of Hayden and what they're dealing with. And then across the street from the library, I think this was possibly an old school, and she said that, there's a person making low budget movies or videos. It would certainly be a good place if you're wanting to film some low budget movies and you need some creepy type backdrops. So this has been a fascinating place. I might come off as it being negative, but I love visiting places like this because you can see what these buildings were, what the town maybe used to be, and it's just been left to decay in a lot of ways. And in 10 or 20 years, who knows what this would be like to visit again. seen a historic town that you like so far, it's going to be hard not to like the next town of Jerome, Arizona, number 2 on our list. And I'm actually walking around a mining ghost town up here at the, I don't know if you'd say the top or the, it's kind of in the middle in terms of the elevation of Jerome, but definitely out on the outskirts from where the town is. Jerome is a fascinating place. I did a drive-through of this town because it's so scenic. I drove through with a GoPro and we released that video previous to this, so if you want to see what it's like to drive through Jerome, you can definitely check that out. But the history of Jerome is like a tale of 2 towns here. It was a copper mining town, and it was a big boom. Had official population of like 5,000 people, but it's probably more than twice that many when you figure out how many people worked here and just were here on a daily basis. And then, like all mining towns that go bust, so did the town of Jerome. And you see that only like 200 people lived here. And luckily in the 1960s, the town leaders made this into a tourist attraction. And so now there are tons and tons of old buildings, and that have been turned, from their original purpose for when it was a mining town to something touristy. And it's an awesome place to visit. It's as scenic as you could imagine. The drive is scenic. The walking through town is scenic. The old buildings are very historical and cool to check out. And there's just a ton of history. You could spend an entire weekend here just kind of walking around and checking out all that Jerome has to offer. We've made it to our smallest town, incorporated town in Arizona, Winkelman. And I'm on the historic bridge that was built in 1916, no longer used for vehicles, right near where the road comes into Winkelman. And it's a pretty cool spot, especially for our last town on this list. Now, number 3 on the list was Hayden. You remember that town, who could forget it? And Winkelman literally is right next to Hayden. Their town signs kind of go almost back to back with each other. The two of the smallest towns in Arizona, two of the three smallest towns are right here next to each other. So this was settled like the 1870s, but then when the mining came around, it became more of a, you know, support or supplemental kind of town for Hayden. And because that's obviously where all the mining is. You can see Hayden on the drone shots. You'll see the big towers, the smelting towers, I guess you would call them. And so it's so close. People would live here, maybe drive over there. The biggest employer here is the school district, so there's not a ton of, you know, jobs that are normal traditional jobs that you'd see in small towns or towns of any size. And so, you know, it became incorporated, it was disincorporated and incorporated again, and has had population figures go up and down, and is now the smallest town in Arizona. So we'll give you a little tour of Winkelman. A lot of old buildings, but there's more activity here kind of than in Hayden, which is more just kind of feeling like a normal small town, although lots of abandoned things to see too. This is in Hayden right here, technically, right near the town boundaries. And there is Winkelman down below. And so that is the list, the 5 smallest towns in Arizona. I'm here still on that Winkelman Bridge. This is the Gila River, spelled G-I-L-A, the Gila River. And what did you think of the list? What was your favorite? Certainly 5 very different kind of towns, whether resort towns or almost ghost towns or the mining towns in this area. I really enjoy Arizona, and making this video gave me an excuse to go to some places I probably never would have before. It's a very beautiful state. All these towns are unique in their own way. I'm glad they are still incorporated. It's interesting that there's only 91 incorporated towns in Arizona. That's not very many compared to like where I'm from in Kansas, where there's hundreds and hundreds of them. Just kind of, I guess, the philosophy of Arizona to not have very small little communities incorporated. But I really had a fun time exploring Arizona. Hope you did too. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of that video. And now that you're here, let me tell you a little bit about some of the extras that we have on the channel. One of the things you can do is you can become a member. There's 3 levels. There's the supporter level, there's the producer level, and the executive producer level. And all 3 levels have different perks, and as you are more supportive financially, there's more perks. We have extra videos every week and a lot of fun stuff going on in the member section. If you haven't done so, make sure you check out travelwithawiseguy.com. We've got lots of extra stuff on there, and one of the things is merchandise. You can get you Travel with a Wiseguy t-shirt. We have Death Go Round t-shirts. We have some coffee mugs, different things that are a lot of fun, and people seem to have enjoyed. Good quality there. Also on the website, you can do things like check out the Google map. I have a pin dropped in every place I've done videos about, then a link to the video so you can look at the map, and maybe there's somewhere where you live or somewhere you want to go. You can check out that map, and it seemed to be a very popular thing. You can sign up for my newsletter. I do that about every 3 weeks. It's totally free. And there's also all kinds of other links and tidbits in there, old videos, podcasts, just everything I could think of I throw on the website. So make sure you check out travelwithawiseguy.com. Thank you for everyone who has been supportive of this channel, and thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. And now for the reason you're probably here, the outtakes. Hey buddy, how are you? I think I found my soulmate. Oh, of course she's not here. No death go rounds in Arizona.